Hello and welcome to part 3 of this gray paper drawing. So what I'm going to do in this part is I'll get some of the other far bank of this lake and we'll work from there. So first let's mark out more or less where the far bank will be. So right here we already decided it's going to be roughly around here. It's going to be a fairly large lake, I suppose. It's larger than most I draw. And the reason why I usually don't draw very large lakes is just because drawing flat water can be kind of boring. But most of you will probably have more patience than I do, so should be fine. So now we're using the Scholar series dark brown. That was the Premier series dark brown we first started with. And we're going over the previous line. So what using multiple browns is doing is giving us a bit of variation, as well as the darker Prismacolor brown, the darker Premier Prismacolor brown makes it look as if it's in shadow towards the bottom. So what we have here is what I imagine to be this kind of like soil dirt bank, far in distance. So now we decide where the lake is. Let's have a couple more pine trees here, kind of frame the painting, the drawing. I'm watching too much Bob Ross, I suppose. So once again, we're using the peacock green, and we're just getting the basic shape of this pine tree. Once again, our pine tree does not have to be this kind of perfect triangular shape. All it needs to do is be a bit wider at the bottom than at the top. So we'll do a little bit the same for the other side. And you know what, let's have another tree here. Otherwise this tree would be lonely, being the only one on this side of the bank. And maybe we'll add a sneaky little one back here. Alright, so let's get our colors. Let's get the black. So once again, we're going to use a black in order to get this feeling of shadow, since we already decided that the sun will be, or the source of light is on the left side. So naturally on the right side of these trees is going to be in shadow. And we use a black in order to achieve the dark effect. So again, we don't need too much of the black, we just need enough to get a decent covering once we use the blender pencil. You can always add more black. Black is one of the few colors that you can go over other colors with because it's simply so strong. So you can always add more black if we think, oh, maybe we want these trees to be darker. But it's simply not very feasible to erase color pencil pigment. There are a few brands that sell color pencils that are erasable, but usually they aren't as good to actually draw with. Their pigments usually aren't as, I guess, nice to work with. And as usual, we are coloring in the other side with the green. You can lay a lot of this in there because we're going to go over it once again with the white, just as we did on this side. The detail comes from the white, which is what we use to show the light from the sun hitting the branches on this tree. So we don't really need too much heavy detail when applying the peacock green or darker colors. We just need to make sure we do a good job on the light side. Now, always follow the size of how the branches will go down the tree. So pine tree branches due to the weight they carry, they usually kind of hang downwards. So you want to follow that on both sides. So on the left side you go this way. So on the left side you go this way, on the right side you go that way. Now let's take, actually let's go over the black as well with the peacock green. Just give it a bit of color. And now let's go to the blender pencil once again. And we'll get these colors blended nicely together. Make sure we don't leave any white holes. Now the reason why we get rid of all white holes is because generally those little white spots at the tooth of the paper make the pencil not be able to reach certain places on the paper, and what that ends up happening is your picture looks unfinished. So once again, we are going over this one tree at a time. You don't want to just wipe it out completely. You want to go at it one tree at a time. That way, you get a better idea of the shape of the tree. Once again, we're following the angles that the branches go. It's very important to always follow where things are going. One of the easiest ways to get direction when drawing is just have your strokes go all in a certain direction. That'll give the feeling of movement, or just the feeling of something going in that direction, I suppose. So we got our first tree, and now we take the white and we work the white in. A little bit on the other side. Don't put too much, but just be aware that light can hit the other side as well. Now what we don't want to do is cover all of the side with a layer of white. We want to leave some darker green areas in there. That way you get the idea that there are multiple branches and it's not just a solid mass. And as we go down, we may choose to use a bit less white because it's farther away from light. There might be other things beyond the scope of this picture. There's another tree over here that's blocking some of the light. So use a bit less as we go down. But always follow the angle of the branches. Now take the blender pencil. Let's sharpen it a little bit. Once again, we do not sharpen our blender pencils to sharp point. All we need is a few millimeters of usable blending material. If you sharpen it, once again, if you sharpen it too much, what happens is, since you need to put a lot of pressure in order to blend something, if you sharpen it too much, you just break the material inside, and you just wasted whatever amount of pencil. Usually it's just a millimeter or two, but these cost about $2 Canadian, so you want to make these last as long as you can. So once again, we're going with the white, layering in the appearance of a few branches. Now we want to go over this tree again with the black, because this tree is in the foreground. So we want the branches of this tree to look like they're going in front of the branches of this tree. Take the blender pencil and just lightly smooth it out a little bit. And finally we get to this tree. Once again, we are using a blender pencil, following the angle of the branches that we already established. I'm going to add a bit more color on here. It's easier to blend colors out if you already have a bit on the paper already. So that was a dark green. Dark green is good for pine trees too. It depends on how blue you want the trees. Much easier now. The more pigment there is on the paper, the easier it is to blend. So when you're working with sky, or water, one of the major mistakes is that you don't put enough pigment in there, since it's all one flat piece. If you don't have enough patience, you might be tempted to just take kind of slide it in there and get a whole bunch of really rough looking lines. You want to take your time when drawing, at least drawing something like this. There are speed sketches and stuff. I'm not particularly good at them, although I could try one in the future. Let's get a few white areas to show light. And once again, we go over this with the black pencil to make it seem as if the branches of the tree in the foreground are hanging in front. And we don't need to blend these because, first off, we already have a layer of wax. The blending pencil is waxy, so you already have this layer of this material over it. So automatically, after you use the blender pencil, any other pigment you put on top will automatically be a bit smoother. And you also want a feeling that there are needles and like individual things, not just a flat board. So now we're just putting a little bit of shadow underneath the trees. The shadow will go towards the right side as the light source is on the left. Alright, so I think we've got this part done. So let's extend the shadow a little bit more. Have a few more, indication of a few more trees in the distance. Well, not distance, but further to the left. But we stop at this point because right here we had the indication of another, I guess, plane or another mound of grass. And what we don't want to do is cover it with shadow, since this is closer to you. Yeah. Okay, so we have trees on both banks now, and now we just have to work this part out. So what I'm thinking of is perhaps on the far bank there will be some more grass, and then beyond that grass is a ridge of trees. So what I'm going to do is take our apple green, the same color we did most of the grass with, and I'm going to also get the dark green and olive green ready. Now let's take the blender pencil and get the bank blended. For this, you can afford to be a bit more rough with your work, since you're going to go over it with the green later anyways. Use a bit of the dark green towards the bank, since the area might be under shadow. And of course, use the apple green. I'm going to sharpen this. Although you don't need pencils to be as sharp as they humanly can be, you still want them to be at least the color ones. The blender pencils need to be less sharp than the colored ones. If you're really going for detail, then yes, you do want to sharpen your pencils quite a bit, especially if you're going to be lighter with the touch. You're going to make lighter strokes. So once again, let's extend a bit of dark green around here. Get the idea of shadow. Maybe it runs along here, and alright, let's actually have the grass go a bit higher on the side. So what this effect does is it makes it look as if the grass is closer to you on this side. So let's actually reflect that in how the bank curves. Right, so yeah, so this part is a bit closer to you. It's lower down, so it appears closer. Once again, we'll use the, sorry, there's a bit of debris under the paper. So once again, we use a color pencil, the blender pencil, and we are just blending the grass out. The grass is further away here, so we don't need as much of the details that we had in the foreground. You don't want that many details in a distant area because that kind of ruins the illusion that it is distant. You can't make things out as well at, 50 meters away or however far this will be. And let's do the same on this side where grass is a bit higher up. There we go. And once again, we'll use a dark green. Also, as you go further away, you want your colors to look duller. So, sometimes you look at a picture and you think it's a bit weird. That might be because things are, supposed to be hundreds of meters away from you in the picture look just as bright as, the foreground. If the focus is, okay, the brightest thing in the picture should be whatever you're focusing on. So, if you're drawing something, like maybe like an animal, like a pet cat or a pet dog, then you should try to have it be the most, unique thing. But in this particular picture, we're not actually having too much of a focus. So, because of that, we need to make sure that there's a progression of distance, and you use color and lack of detail to show distance. So I'm using a bit of the white to show the sunlight striking the grass. Blend it down a little bit. You don't want a solid line. Instead, what you want is just kind of blend downwards, a gradient, if you will. Now, once again, we're going to use a thin layer of the dark brown. This is the Premier pencil. Once again, as a reminder, the Scholar quality Prismacolor dark brown is much lighter than the Premier quality dark brown. Honestly, I think the Prismacolor Scholar pencil shouldn't even be called dark brown. It's not very dark. But Prismacolor does have very eccentric names for their pencils. One of their quirks. Their normal red is called Crimson Lake. Like a pool of blood or something. So once again, we're using this aquamarine color, which we decided would be the primary color in our lake. So we're just going to work along the bank. Now this light coating, this light shading down from the actual bank of the dark brown, we are going to use to make it a reflection. So as usual, we blend our water going with straight up and down strokes with our blender pencil. So straight up and down. And as we go over the part that this little layer of brown that you put underneath the bank, there's another something underneath paper. Just clean it off. Yeah. it appears like there's a reflection of the bank. Now we use the exact same color to create the reflection as we did to create the bank, but we put a layer of this aquamarine blue over it, so it looks like there's water. And now we're just working across. Always making sure that the strokes are up and down. Every now and then I do go across just to just in case there are any too obvious looking up and down strokes. Kind of bring them all together. You know, you go up and down first. That's your more important stroke, but if you want, you can always go lightly across. The up and down gives the impression that everything is still, and I find that it blends the well, basically what happened is that we worked across using the actual pigment. So to get the best effect when blending, you go up and down vertically. Now, maybe in this lake, we decide that the middle part will be lighter. So now what I'm going to do is use a couple of lighter blue. So this one is sky blue. It's in the Scholar set. It is a very light blue, as you can see here. And we'll just work into the middle of this lake using the sky blue. And we'll use a bit of aquamarine just to go over it so that it doesn't look like there's, you know, a sudden transition between colors. The only time you should actually transition suddenly from different colors is if you want to separate them, like make them look like there's two separate objects. But since we're just drawing the surface of one lake, you want everything to kind of blend together in a gradient, instead of having sudden changes in color and tone. Once again, we're going over it with vertical strokes of the blender pencil. This is using a lot of pressure. So your hand might get tired after a bit. And we're just working towards the center of the lake. Around the edges, I might go horizontally just to follow the edges of the bank. Let's take a bit of the white and clean up this edge. Again, we're blending downwards. We don't want the solid line of white, but we do want to make it distinct that this is where the grass ends and this is where the lake starts. So go back to the aquamarine. What I like to do when drawing water is I like to use the actual colors, the pigments, and go across and then blend vertically. I find that gives the best this still water effect. And you know, like if you have some random variations in the darkness of your horizontal strokes with aquamarine, it'll look like there might be, you know, a few little ripples, which I kind of like. Just kind of around the edges, you can, you know, deviate from your normal angles just to get a little closer. And as usual, since we already decided that the middle of the lake will be a bit lighter in color to make it look as if the light is shining through, we're going to gradually lighten as we get closer to the middle. And now we take the sky blue and go over, and we'll cover some of the areas we already drew on with the aquamarine to get the same effect that we got earlier here, where the colors our gradient instead of just a sun transition. As usual, horizontal strokes. And now we cover most of this side. We go back to the blending pencil. Cover a little bit, not too much. And now we go into vertical strokes, just like before, and color the rest of this lake. As you see, right here, I evidently use less pigment on the upper side of the lake, so I just want to make sure that everything looks consistent. So if I need to add a bit more pigment to previous areas I've already drawn, then I'll do it. Working from the outside in. It's always easier to draw something if you already have a previous reference. So in our case, our previous reference is this land that we already put in a while back. As we go along the shore, we can, of course, go in horizontal strokes along the shore just to get a bit better of a detail and a plainness, I suppose, of the edge. And blend in the rest of the lake. We need to work inwards. Alright, so let's add a bit more of the aquamarine pigment just to smooth things out a little bit. Continue with vertical strokes. And now we are left with the center. So we use some sky blue. So this is a part of the 48 pencil scholar set. You won't get this with the 24 set. 24 set is a bit lacking in colors in my opinion. What you'll find is you actually won't use quite a few of the colors, because they're just not really that useful. Now, you'll take another scholar pencil, cloud blue. Now, this is possibly the lightest blue color that Prismacolor makes. It's also only in the 48 set and larger. I don't think they make any larger than 48 sets of their scholar pencils. They do make very large sets of, like hundreds for their premier quality pencils. But so what that does is it creates a further lighter layer on the very inside. So as we blend this with our blender pencil, get this effect of the shimmer of light going down the middle of the lake. So we'll just go over the rest of what we haven't gone over with vertical strokes of the blender pencil. And there we have it. Crystal clear blue lake. Part 4 will be coming soon, so stay tuned. Bye.